Good morning and welcome to Fat Cow Farm. Now, what I wanted to do was show you quickly what the chickens have done to our vegetable garden bay number 3. Now, remembering we covered this with our green manure and all the seeds, and that was from Eden Seeds. Now, it's been around about 3 weeks now where we've let the chickens in. And as you can see behind me, they have pretty much destroyed everything. Now, I can see now what the chickens have been eating. So we had snow peas and all the legumes and things like that, beans and normal standard peas and whatnot. They're all now finished, and all the leafy green material, and there was things like lettuces and things like that in here, they've all gone. Now, what we have got left, and which I'm finding quite interesting, is a lot of the rye grasses. They've all remained, and I don't know, a lot of them look like they have been pecked at and started to be eaten. So I don't think it will be too much longer before the chickens start going through those. But the majority of things that are left are these mustard ones. Now, you can see that they've got those long tap roots. So when this plant dies off, those tap roots then shrivel up and the rain can come through. But interestingly enough, what we're finding is, and this must have come through with the chickens, pumpkins, and as I've been watching this one, so as they flower, the chickens are taking care of those flowers straight away. So that's not going to produce any fruit. But interesting that they're not eating any of the leaves or stalks. Tomatoes is the same. And again, this must have come through on the chickens' manure, because we've got quite a few sprays of tomatoes coming through. But they're not taking out the leaves and the flowers like they have some of the others. I do remember last year where we finished all our tomato crop and we let the chickens in and they destroyed it. So it must be a part of, almost like all animals, they'll eat what they like first, and then as things get a little bit leaner, they'll then start taking care of everything else. But check this out. A few of the sunflowers have made it through, and we'll let those go. Look at this one here. And that's got quite a few flowers ready to go. So we'll let that one seed up, and then we'll just bang those seeds out and let the chickens take care of that. We've also noticed, now I think this is a peach or a nectarine. That's obviously come through as a part of our compost. So that's taken off, and I'll wait for winter and I'll transplant that one out. But as you can see, overall, they've done a fantastic job, and this has only been 3 weeks. So a lot of the material that they've broken down, you know, it's all starting to dry off and decompose. That'll all be sent through back into the soil. Now I'm thinking that what we'll end up doing is that once this is completely barren, we'll let this one sit, and I'm going to introduce an autumn winter mix into this bay. Because what we'll do by that time, veggie garden number 1 and number 2, that would have finished its harvest, or we would have finished the harvest by then, and then we can close this one down. We'll put that autumn winter mix in it, let it do its thing, and so that will then give the chickens some fresh greens and things like that over those period of time. So what I want to do though is quickly show you veggie garden number 1 and veggie garden number 2. Now veggie garden number 2 has only been up and running for probably about 2 weeks now, and we've got a lot of zucchinis and cucumbers. We've got capsicums in there, we've got onions, all the herbs are in there as well. So I'll show you those, but we'll head up to number 1 first. So I'll see you soon. All right, so here we are in veggie garden number 1. Now, this area here was really designed for our tomatoes, really, at the end of the day. Now, this has been probably about a month since we first started stringing up all our tomatoes. Now, as you can see behind me, we've now reached pretty much the end of where they can actually grow. They're actually protruding through the mesh that we have on the top. Now, I can't remember exactly how many tomatoes we had in here. I thought it was close to about 35 or so. Now, what we're finding is most of the vines have got close to around about 8 or 9 sprays. Now, most of the sprays, let's just say this one here, 2, 4, 6. Most of the sprays have got 8. Now, what I am seeing is, and I'll take this one off here, the bottom ones are pretty much ready in the next week to start harvesting. Now, on each of those sprays, like I said, we've got close to 8. So every vine is pretty much going to produce close to around about 50 odd tomatoes. Now, these little guys here, it's interesting to see what's being produced. Now, when I started coming through and I started looking at them, I'm going, oh, geez, they're not as big as what I expected. But what I did find is that when we opened them up, is these are the source tomatoes. So this is I think these ones here are the St. Moritz. And they've got a very, very high meat content, which is perfect for our sauces. Unlike some of the others, there's a lot more seed and space inside the tomatoes. So we're still going to be producing a truckload of our tomato sauces to get us through the winter seasons and everything else. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. They're just too yummy. So, as you can see, we still have, oh, there's a caterpillar. We still have quite a few that haven't reached their full potential yet coming through, but I've now stopped the main trunks and I've cut them as they go through the mesh. Now, what I am going to do, and this is something that I suppose we'll just see what happens, is that when we were going through the process of maintaining and pruning your tomatoes, all the little suckers, now you can see most of them I've already nipped out the centers from. So what I wanted to do was quickly find one for you. Here's an example here. So there's one of your little suckers there. Now I'm going to leave a few and I'm going to mark them out, and I'll put a little bit of string or something around them. So that then becomes the new main trunk, and we'll start getting more fruit from that sucker. So that's going to be the plan for these tomatoes, because I mean, we're pretty much really at the point where I can't really have anything more as a growth period. Now the corns have already started. You can see that in the background there. And a lot of the corns, they've got around about 3 to 4 cobs on each. So, and they're getting up quite high as well. The pumpkins are going crazy. The carrots are going nuts. Parsley and basil, everything's just going absolutely buntung. Now, I'm really positive, and I can pretty much say to you that this didn't happen to us last year. We had a massive harvest last year, but this year it's looking bigger and bigger and better than last year in terms of weight. So if we were to weigh everything, we're going to get a truckload more. And this is purely because we've let the chickens come through here over the period, and they've cut all this down, and they've got all their manures and everything else. And I think also too, with planting cover crops, that's got a lot of carbon going back into the soils and things like that. So the systems are working, and working very, very well. Now I'll just see if I can find, they're all the new carrots. No, I haven't got any of the old ones left. This is already our second harvest for the carrots. Let me see. Look at this little guy. We've got the button-up pumpkins coming through. And there's probably close to around about 7 or 8 of those. And they've all just self-seeded. So really, I mean, the system works. And you can see that if you hadn't trellised these tomatoes up, they would have just fallen over absolutely everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. We'll take you into garden bed number 2, our veggie garden bed number 2. And this is something that we only planted out a couple of weeks ago. So this is a part of our second harvest. And we can go from there. So I'll see you next door. See you soon. All right, so here we are in veggie garden number 2. Now, as you can see, what I've got is I've got more corn running through here and everything else. Now, I suppose what I thought was really the most interesting is that the zucchinis. Now, we've got quite a few, well, what have we got, 6 or 7 zucchinis in here that we've just planted out by seed. Now, not sure, oh, sorry little guy, there's a little bee in there. But the flowers are coming through thick and fast now. Now, there's already a couple zucchinis that have been, they've already started. So it won't be too much longer before, probably in about another 2 weeks, we'll be starting to harvest our zucchinis. And that's coming on at about a month. So a little bit faster than what the average sort of produce goes through, because a lot of them look at around about that 6 to about 2 months sort of scenario. Now we've got all the corn and the zucchinis, they're going through. I've got beans. Now what I am finding though is that the process being with staggering your harvest is that this area now is getting protected. So all the tomatoes from garden bed number 1, that's given us a fantastic point of wind shading. Now, but the important thing to remember is that sun's right above me now, so that you don't want to cause any shading per se. So when you start setting out your garden beds, the sun shading is probably one of the most important. Now what I have done here is that we've sort of transplanted a few tomatoes out the back, and I've just strung them up, and I've got cucumbers sort of around the back there, and then those cucumbers will end up going up this back mesh, just so that again, the way that we've set up the veggie garden is that we've got direct sunlight, and that's always a bonus. I've got a couple of tomatoes that have just self-sown, so again I'll just let a few of them naturally grow, and then as the other ones start finishing, we can either move them along to somewhere else or I can string them up. Eggplants, zucchinis, what have we got there? Capsicums. Now these ones here is just sunflowers. They're just little treats for the chickens. We thought we'd bang them in, but the intention was actually to transplant those into the swales. I just didn't have time, and I've just been doing other things, so that's causing a little bit of shading over some of the capsicums running through there that we'll have to sort out. We've got some self-sown, that looks like a chili that's come through. One of the chickens must have spat that one out, so that's a bit of hot fire, mate. So as you can see, as this one's as garden bed number 1 is starting to ready for harvest, it won't be too much longer before we're back in here and harvesting this one. And then what we'll end up doing is doing a second, almost third seed propagation in this one to get us through to the end of summer. So as a part of the setup with the chicken coop, you can see that 3 bays over summer really work. And we're hoping that the same sort of results is what we're going to find over our winter crops on the other side of the chicken coop when the sun is a lot lower. So that's going to get a lot more sun on that side. And that was one of the things we found this side last year. is that I don't think it had quite enough sun. But the produce was great, but I was expecting more volume. All right, so as a bit of a recap, guys, here we are in the middle of summer. Veggie Garden Bay's going off. Number 2 is starting to kick off now, and we'll let the chickens finish off in number 3 a little bit more, and then we'll put in that autumn winter mix in the next couple of months. So until next time, don't forget, like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.